All right, episode 2 of Money and Stuff. I'm Sam Rodriguez. Connor Shepard is here with me again. Money and stuff because we're going to talk about things relating to money and maybe some other stuff too. I don't know, but some background. Again, is really enjoy talking with people about all things relating to money and more importantly the psychology of what's making money move and what are all the behind the scene things that are making money move at that time. And right now, we're getting a lot of questions about housing prices. And specifically, we're getting homeowners asking us, should I sell my house? Because things have appreciated so much. So right now we're seeing, all across the United States, we're seeing home prices are appreciating greatly. If you look at your home's value, whether you look at it on Zillow or you've just recently got your tax assessment, you've probably seen that it's appreciated in value quite a bit just in the last year. So want to spend some time today talking about why that is and, if there's any decisions you need to make around that. So Connor, before I jump into anything, is there anything you want to throw in there? Anything you want to make sure I talk about?
No, I think we'll touch on it as we go. I think my biggest hang up and the thing I'm hoping we can go over is, for me as a 26-year-old young adult, realistically, I'd like to look at buying a home within the next 5 to 10 years. So what I can potentially be doing to sort of, prepare for all the things we're going to be talking about, but also stuff that I should be looking out for just in general in terms of market trends, just different things going on with the economy that could be good indicators to keep in mind for me down the road.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Let's talk about people who don't own a home but are looking to buy a home either in the very near future or just, hey, if prices continue appreciating the way they are, what do things look like 5 years from now? Or if I'm trying to get into a house 5 years from now. So I guess let's talk a little bit first about just what we're seeing, right? So
yeah, what's going on right now? What's going on?
That's right. Why does anybody want to own a home?
I'm just going to get a Winnebago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So what we're really seeing is, man, home prices have gotten crazy, right? It is definitely a seller's market. People are putting their homes on the market. Some people are selling their homes before they ever even publicly list them. People are getting above asking price. If you're buying a home, a lot of people are having to come with cash because, homes are not appraising for what they're selling for. The demand is so high and people are having to come with cash if they're financing the house. So I'd say, one of the things that a lot of people are asking us about right now is, I own a home. I see that my value is way up. I've never seen the value of my house as high as it is right now. Should I sell my house? Right. And I think that answer, obviously, it's going to be different for everybody. I think the more we do these podcasts and the more you hear my answers, the more you're going to hear my answer be, well, it depends. Connor, you've probably over the last several months realized that that's probably my first answer to almost everything is it really depends. It depends on why you own the home, why you would want to sell the home, what you would be doing with that cash. But let's talk about, why home prices are appreciating. And it's really just a matter of supply and demand, right? Simple economics is when demand is high or when supply is low, prices go up. And right now we have a situation where both are happening. Supply is very high and demand is very low. I don't know what the national statistics are, but I know here in the North Texas area, normally there's about a 6-month supply of homes for sale on the market. And right now there is only about a 4-week supply. So
wow.
Very few homes on the market, very little supply, and demand for homes is very, very high. So causes for demand, there's always demand for homes, right? You've always got people who are finally in the position where they can buy a home. And that's why there's always new homes built. So that way, we can supply homes to brand new home buyers, people starting their careers, getting in a position where they can purchase homes, people starting families, people needing new homes, a lot of people moving for jobs, right? I'd say the big thing right now, though, is last year was sort of a, like a wait and see year. And so now we have all of this pent up demand from last year of people who were just sort of waiting to see what was going to happen. And now that it looks like we're going to be coming out, people are getting vaccinated and people feel a little more free to go out and look at homes and maybe find an area that they want to live. Demand is skyrocketing. Not only that is we even though interest rates have gone up a little bit, they're still historically super, super low. And I think there's a little bit of fear of missing out right now. I think people really are wanting to, go out and purchase a home while the interest rates are low and they can afford more, right? Because the lower the interest rate is, the more home that you can afford. So there's this sort of increased demand right now on the supply side. Some of it is they just can't build the homes fast enough. People are not putting their current homes on the market. In terms of why that is, could be for several reasons. I think one is people move for jobs quite a bit. And I don't know, man, I think maybe this pandemic sort of accelerated some things that were already going to happen, which is sort of the step back away, from having to go into an office, right? Like you and I have been working from home quite a bit, right? Separate homes, but our own separate homes, right? Quite a bit. And I think that really puts people in a position where, we don't have this workforce that is moving or having to move for new jobs, right? But I think it also, what it does, I wouldn't be surprised if we looked at the statistics and saw that suburban areas home prices were accelerating faster than urban areas, just because if people are realizing, hey, I don't have to pay the high prices of living in the city, I can live in the suburbs, that's probably creating some demand for homes out in the suburbs, right?
I know I've got family, cousins around my age and, friends from school, a lot of them who were living in like New York, Boston, Chicago, a lot of them have moved out. Either, some of them moved back in with parents, with their significant others, buying places sort of out, like you said, further out in more of a suburban atmosphere. So it's definitely, I think you're definitely right about the trend is, or the pandemic has made a lot of people take a step back and realize I don't have to live in the city now to continue doing my job. Now that I can actually be just as productive working from home, working remotely, I don't have to be there in the city paying these absurdly high prices for where I'm living.
I don't have to decide whether I'm going to have an hour and a half commute or pay a super high price for living in the city. And that's true. There's probably a lot of people who were having to rent in cities that are able to buy out in the suburbs right now, right? One of the things I was reading too is there are several cities that are seeing increased population growth or significant, I should say, increased population growth that's not related to jobs at all. It's related to lifestyle, right? A lot of people moving to cities in Colorado. I can't remember any of the other places, but places that better climates, closer to things they like to do. So that way, I think we're stepping into a point where people are thinking about spending more time doing things they enjoy doing and trying to get to a place, whether that's everyday life or what they do on the weekend, get to a place where they can spend more time doing those things,
Well, I think, it's exactly that. It's sort of shifting from where do I have to live in order to have, a comfortable lifestyle and have this job. And it's moving more towards that. Where do I want to live? Where would I enjoy living? Because I can still continue doing my job at a reasonable pace without having to sort of make that trade-off that in the past was a must.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know we're talking about housing, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with people's idea of their working years versus their retirement is like, right? Because I think a lot of people, especially in that baby boomer generation, that retirement goal is I don't have to go in and, work the daily grind anymore. I can finally go do the things I enjoy doing when I want to do them. And I think people are really, there's a big shift to how do I enjoy more of my life now, right? And if that's the case, do people ever stop working then? If they're like, no, I have a great work-life balance. Why would I stop working? Right.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
so I don't think I talked about supply, like what the problem was with supply or what the problem is with supply. Man, people just aren't really selling their homes, right? I think again, people aren't moving. I think a lot of it is too. I think people are still in that a little bit of that wait and see. Maybe everyone's finances aren't quite back on track where they were. And so they're sort of holding on to what they have. The government's sort of helping them hold on to what they have right now, right? No foreclosures or anything like that, which is allowing people to just keep their home, stay in it. And then, and rather than sell their home, it's more, let's wait and see if things get better and if things will work out and then make decisions then, right? Just not as many reasons to move. And then there's, support for people to stay in their homes. And two, I think there's a little bit of leftover, anxiety after last year of all of us being hunkered down at home. I think the idea of, selling my house and figuring out like, like kind of coming out of our bunker that we've been in. I don't think everybody's ready to make those big moves right now,
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, you throughout all of last year and, still now you'll hear people talk about, oh, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. We're getting vaccinated, things are going back to normal. But, a lot of areas of not just the economy, but in general, just our daily lives and just our society. I mean, a lot of things are going to be affected by that ripple effect from this pandemic, from this lockdown. And, I think that's exactly what you're talking about. It's just the reverberations of that are going to be having an effect on things even beyond when we come out of it.
Psychologically and emotionally, there's not a switch that can be flipped for most people when this has become your everyday life, being careful, staying home, then you get vaccinated. I think it would be difficult for most people to just suddenly go, all right, I got my shot. Let's get out there.
Time to go to the club.
Yeah. Right. There's an adjustment period, right? I mean, it was an adjustment to make that happen, right? Like kind of the first couple of months drove us a little bit crazy being in the house and you should sort of get used to it. And now, I don't know what it is, but whether it's fear or I don't know, but I think it's going to take a while for us to get back out there. So in terms of the big question though, that we talked about or that we're getting asked about like, should I sell my home while the prices are so high? Again, the answer really depends. It's like, number one is why do you own a home in the first place? Two is why would you really be selling your home? Three, where would you go if you sold your home? Right. So number one, in terms of why do you own your home? That's a thing to think about. It's like, it's not just like, why do you own a home, but why do you own your home? Why do you live where you live? Do you love your neighborhood? Do you love your neighbors? Do you love your city? What is it that you love about where it is that you are? And if you're not completely satisfied with it, then, no matter the price of your home, you probably need to think about finding a different place to live anyway. Right?
Yeah.
That goes along with what we talk about, making happy people, getting people to the place where they can really enjoy their life and they have the financial means to do so. But where you live has a huge effect on that.
Right? Oh yeah.
Getting out and meeting your neighbors or, walking around your city and just there being things that you like doing, being readily accessible to you. Right. And then, why would you be selling it? I would say if you're selling it because you are going to move to a place that you want to go to, okay, that makes sense. But if you're selling it just to get the money from it or just to take advantage of current prices, I think that could be a mistake, because then the question is, where are you going to go? Right?
Yeah.
Like if you sell your house at a highly appreciated price and you're gonna live in the same area that you live in now, then it's likely that you're gonna go buy another house at a highly appreciated price. So
Hmm.
from a financial standpoint, does it really make sense to do? And I think especially right now, because people say, well, I think it's a good time to downsize. Well, the issue with downsizing is the smaller the square footage of the home, the more per square foot that the home sells for. So
Yeah.
it's almost not a negative transaction, but you're kind of going backwards in a little way.
Yeah.
I have had some people tell me, well, what if we sell our house and we just wait a year for prices to fall and then we buy a house when prices fall? Uh, I, obviously, I I don't want to say obviously, you know, but no one can tell the future. When I say obviously, it sounds like I'm wrong like there's something I should point to that makes me wrong all
you're,
the time.
you're
But
prophesizing the exact opposite of
yeah,
what's going to
but
happen.
what I meant was no one can tell the future, right? But I do think that we have this tendency to think if things run up high this fast, they're gonna come crashing down. And we
Hmm.
maybe think of the housing crisis of 2008 that started in 2007, but this is different, right? Like back then, people were just buying second, third, fourth homes just to get the appreciation,
Yeah.
and it was unsustainable. People didn't really have the incomes to keep those homes, but kind of a false demand at that time. But there is a true demand, right? Like then it was just pure demand. Now it is supply and demand. So
Hmm.
I don't know that prices are going to fall. What I would say is I would look at the area that you're in and the area that you would be moving to, whether it's the same area you're in now or a different area, and try to figure out, why are homes appreciating there,
Hmm.
and would it be likely to continue? So, for example, we live in the North Texas area, and we have an issue. We have the supply and demand issue, but the main issue or a big issue that we have is there's a lot of businesses that are moving into our area, and with those
Hmm.
businesses come population growth, right? So I will tell you in this area, I don't expect prices to fall. I think the best that we can hope for is the supply side catches up and homes level off. But in order for prices to fall, not only would the supply need to increase, but the demand would have to fall as well. And I
Hmm.
know in this area, I do not expect demand to fall because the population growth that we're expecting and that we're still seeing even through the pandemic has been enormous. So you know you could be in a situation where you sell your house at a highly appreciated price, wait a year, right? Rent something, wait a year, and a year later, you're going to be paying an even higher price. Or even if you can
Yeah.
break even and find something at for kind of dollar for dollar, prices didn't appreciate, prices didn't rise. If you're going to finance that house, the other thing that you really need to think about are interest rates,
Hmm.
right? So right now you probably have a really good interest rate on your home, but interest rates have been ticking up. So what happens if a year from now you go to buy a home, and even if it's the same price home that you had before, if interest rates move up, you're going to be paying a higher monthly mortgage than you were
Yeah.
previous, right? So for example, I think the national average home price is somewhere around 300,000, something like that. So let's say you have a 30-year mortgage, 300,000 at 3% right now, right? Not including escrow. You're paying $1,265, right? If you sold that house and next year were able to buy a house and finance 300,000, but it was 4% instead of 3% interest rate,
Hmm.
your payment goes from 1265 to 1432, right?
Hmm.
Or if you said, well, I want to keep the same payment, and the interest rate is now 4%. Well, instead of being able to buy a $300,000 house, you can buy a $265,000 house.
Yeah.
And if the interest rates go up to 5%, you now can buy a $235,000 house. So interest rates have a big impact. So thinking I'm going to get the appreciation now, and I'm going to buy a house in a year. If prices fall, great, that works for you, right? Like if you're in an area that people aren't really moving to, it's not so much a demand issue as much as it's a supply issue, then maybe that'll work out for you. But if you're in an area where population growth is pretty heavy, and so you've got both supply and demand issues, man, I just don't think it's likely that we're going to see home prices fall and that you're going to get a better deal a year from now. The other thing you got to think about is, what are you going to pay for rent in the year that you wait, right?
Yeah, so, the interlude.
Yeah. So if you've got to pay, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in rent, if your mortgage was, let's say, all in $2,500, and now you're paying even just $3,000 for rent, you've got that extra cost of that $500 per month that you're not going to get back. On top of that, had you stayed in your house and been applying the mortgage to it, instead of just giving that money to somebody else, you'd be building equity in your house. So I would say that for most people, again, I don't know the future, but I don't think it's a good idea unless you know where you're going to go and why you're going there.
Yeah.
Or you live in an area where there is a demand issue in terms of demand isn't really very high. It just happens to be, we have very little supply right now, and that people aren't really moving into your area,
So it would be fair, I think, to say, don't get caught up with, the hype around low interest rates, higher home prices, sell, take a step back, sort of do an almost analysis on, okay, why am I living where I am? What is the value of, where I'm living to me, to my family? And then, sort of keeping an eye almost on, okay, if I don't want to live where I am now, if, I'm going to move and buy a home somewhere, you want to do a little detective work almost into the more localized trends and, economic factors of the areas you're going to be moving. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I would say so. And I'd say find a real estate agent that you really trust.
Yeah.
I remember back in 2013, late 2013, early 2014, we had a similar situation where we were coming out of the housing crisis and homes like just suddenly shot back up. And we had, a lot of people selling their homes just to take advantage of the price appreciation. And we had, some real estate agents that were telling people, now's the time, look what you can get, but they weren't thinking all the way through their decision the way you just described. Right? Really ask yourself, why do I live where I live? Would I want to live anywhere else? If I sold my house, why would I be selling it? I would say just to get the price appreciation, or just to realize the appreciation from price. I don't think that's a good enough idea, right?
Yeah, because you could end up paying that difference down the line just in, trying to find that new home, ending up paying that much more per square footage, that much more in your mortgage. And you end up really not making nearly as good of an economic gain as you might have, thought when you were initially looking at, all the, it's taking those the rose tinted glasses off and, getting the full picture before you pull the trigger.
Yeah. So if you think about all the ways that it could work out for you, right? If it could end up being a bad financial decision or a good financial decision, really the main way or the only way that it ends up being a good financial decision is if prices are lower at some point in the future, right? And we don't know, they could be, right? But we don't know if that's going to be a year from now, 5 years from now. Like the likelihood is that, I would say the likelihood is the prices are not going to be lower. At best, they're going to level off, right? So the second thing I would then say is the next best thing in terms of it working out for you is deciding whether or not there's somewhere else you'd rather live, right? Because interest rates are really low. And yes, homes have appreciated, but if we don't think that they're really going to fall, then yeah, probably taking advantage of the low interest rates. Because even if prices finally level off and stay the same, you know, if interest rates tick up, it's going to cost you more for that same house. Right? So if it's only to get the price appreciation, probably not a great idea. But if there's somewhere else you'd rather live, if your home doesn't suit your lifestyle or your family, then yeah, now would be a good time to find that house that does. And I could be wrong, right? Prices could fall. I don't really see a scenario where that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. I think as the economy recovers, jobs start coming back, unemployment, ticks down, and if unemployment keeps ticking down, then personal incomes will rise. And all of that just leads to more and more demand.
Yeah.
So I just don't see the demand side falling.
Okay. That sort of leads into, what I was wanting to touch on at the beginning. So, you just briefly started getting into it with, unemployment, the interest rates, but like, are there any other trends economically, on a maybe, localized societal level, anything that people may not know they should keep an eye on, or that, they should be sort of keeping in mind when they're looking for indicators per se?
Oh man, I wish we had talked about this more ahead of time, and then I could have tried to find some. But but off the top of my head, not really. I think unemployment is one to look for, because high unemployment means people not being able to make their mortgage payments, which means demand for homes falling, which also means supply of homes increasing. Right. Personal income going up leads to inflation, which leads to higher prices of everything. Right. But to your question earlier that you started with, in terms of someone who does not own a home, and what do you need to be doing? The answer to anybody trying to reach a financial goal is always start saving money. Right?
Start saving money.
Start saving money.
Put it away.
Yeah. So, the tough thing though is I'm telling you, like, hey, I think prices are going to keep going up, and I think interest rates are also going to go up. So I think homes are going to be more expensive for you. But I would probably accelerate my time frame.
Yeah.
Right? Figure out what you got to do to make it happen sooner rather than later. I will say a trend that I think we may start seeing in the near future, especially if prices continue to appreciate the way they have. Over the last 30 years or so, we've seen the average home size double here in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you looked at a graph of interest rates and home size, they're going in opposite directions, right? So what you see is, as interest rates fall, it allows people to afford a higher mortgage.
Yeah.
And if people can afford a higher mortgage, well, that means they can buy a bigger home. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think as interest rates begin to tick up, people are going to be looking for maybe more affordable homes. I also see a lot of the baby boomer generation, as they're retiring, their kids have left the home, and they're trying to figure out where they're going to be that fits their lifestyle, and they're looking for low maintenance. They're not trying to stay in that 4 or 5 bedroom home, maintain their yard,
now that the nest is empty, you know.
And it's expensive to maintain a house, right? And when you're on a fixed income in retirement, you'd rather enjoy that money than spend it on your house, right?
Yeah.
So we have that, and there's like 10,000 baby boomers a day turning 65. So it's an enormous number of people that are in that generation. And then I think about your generation. You and I were talking about this earlier, how, my generation, I'm kind of the tail end of Generation X. I think I'm on the tail end of, the generation that still really values stuff, accumulating stuff like a huge television and a big house and all
nice car,
all
that jazz.
stuff, and I think you guys, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, you guys grew up with, I think, with just a different set of values, just wanting to, I don't know, put more value on experiences and things you enjoy doing. And then I think about, I even think about you growing up, with smartphones being there for the majority of your life. It's like, man, you don't care if you're watching it on in a theater room in your home or on your phone. Like, it's the same to you. You have access to it no matter what. And you have this entertainment center like in your hands at all times that no matter where you are sort of takes you to whatever world you want to be in. So less feeling of the need of all of these things, right? Even my daughter, when she turned 16, which was 10 years ago, even by that time, man, like, she didn't want a car. We had to force, we were like, you are driving yourself to school. We're not.
We don't have time for this.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I look at my son and, when I was his age, all I wanted to do was get home and then go hang out with my friends. And he hangs out with his friends online. Like, that's,
yeah.
So there's no need to like, oh, I need a car so that way, or I need a place where everybody can come over to, or whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. You would know better than me why you don't value the same things.
I mean, I might, but I think you're absolutely right. I think it goes back to what we talked about near the start of this podcast. It's my generation and, younger generations, I definitely think are the beginning generations of, having seen our parents, the, baby boomer generation, having seen a lot of examples of, company men and women, people, working their whole lives just to make a ton of money, or, have that, a lot more materialistic. And I don't mean that in a negative way, just, a lot more, like you said, the stuff mentality. And our generation and younger generations are the ones that are looking at it as, honestly, it's almost becoming disillusioned with that and saying, I'd rather be happy now.
Yeah.
And have, that satisfaction now, whether that's in, going on vacations that, maybe older generations would say, no, that's like, we're saving all that for retirement, or, we're doing that once every 4 years. It's seeing it as, no, I'd rather do that stuff now. I'd rather have those experiences now and be happy, even if it means, not getting that super nice sports car, getting that, massive 3D, they've got 3D curved televisions now. Yeah. It's crazy, but, and I think it's, it just goes back to what you were saying at the beginning. It's a seeing an example, from the older generation and saying, I'd rather have it another way. I'd rather have that, satisfactory experience and, happiness now, as opposed to treating it almost as a dessert at the end of a career, and you just splurge all at once.
We should actually we could probably spend and dedicate an episode to just the mental and emotional shift that we see happening, or the mental and emotional differences around money between different generations, right? And
I'd love to do that.
Yeah,
I'd love to go over that.
All right, we got episode 3 planned out.
Y'all heard it here.
Let's talk
Y'all
about
heard it here first.
But the point I was trying to get to is, if we got the baby boomers who are downsizing, and then we've got people of your generation who are looking to purchase a home, but you're going to be also looking for a smaller home because you don't care about buying the big house. I think the demand for those smaller homes is going to get really, really high.
Yeah.
Right. And I think one side effect as well of that, of not only looking at the smaller home, right? Well, you might also be looking at the smaller home because interest rates are high, and that's where the affordability falls. And I'm going to be,
it's almost like a perfect storm of like, you have multiple chunks of demographics honing in on that specific
Yeah.
type of home, that they want to be going
Yeah.
after at the same time.
And then interest rates also pushing you that way, right? And so the bad thing for me is, I bought the home I bought, right? So and that a lot of people have bought over the last, say, 5 to 10 years. Like I said, home sizes have gotten much bigger, doubled over the last 30 years. What are we going to do with all of these big houses when nobody wants them? Or I don't want to say when no one wants them, but even if people still want them, if interest rates are climbing, the pool of people that want to pay that mortgage for that house begins to really shrink.
Yeah.
And so that demand for the bigger homes might begin to fall, right?
Yeah.
So all of that to
Good
say,
point.
going back to, if you're thinking of selling your house just for the price appreciation, really sit and think about why you're doing it and what you would do afterwards and where you really want to live. And that would be my advice to you as well, Connor, or for anyone in your position that is looking to buy a home in the near future is, man, if I had to go back to when I was your age, I would start with, where do I want to live?
Yeah.
Right? Like those things I enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis or on the weekends. Where is it that I can live that gives me easy access to those things? Right? Just because, what's going to make you happy, right?
Yeah.
It's the things outside of work that really keep you going, right? And that's what I would be thinking about, man, is where do I want to live? Less about, oh man, so many people, they move further and further away because they can get a bigger and bigger house. But it's like my brother, he moved, he got a great deal on a house, and it's probably going to be a tremendous area with all the growth that's happening around him. But for now, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think he thought about that. I think it was sort of, your eyes get really big when you see what you can buy.
Yeah.
So, for you, I would say, figure out where you want to live, figure out what prices are around that place right now, and figure out what it's going to take to get yourself in the position to be able to afford a mortgage there. But I think real estate is always a good investment, right? And when I say investment, I just mean, I don't mean go out and start flipping homes, but
get a show on TLC.
Yeah, if you're gonna live somewhere, if you're gonna have a place that has a door, that that, and a roof and some walls,
Yeah.
and you're gonna be paying money for it, why not be building some equity for yourself?
Yeah.
And especially with the low interest rate environment that we're in right now, the cost for owning a home is, in some cases, less than the cost of rent. So, I've given some advice to some young people. I've said, hey, if you can afford to, why don't you go ahead and buy a house and then rent out the other 2 rooms to buddies of yours? Right? Because you're still going to charge them less than they would if they went out and rented a place, and they'd be paying more than half of your mortgage for you. They'd basically be building an asset for you. So I always think real estate's a good idea. I just think you got to think about why you're owning real estate. And for most people, they're owning a home, so that way they have a place to go, and they maybe should not think of it in just price appreciation terms.
Yeah.
That's it. So I babble on and on and on about to answer the question of, I guess it all boils down to, I don't really think it's a great idea unless you're going to move anyway. Right? That's it, man.
I got a lot from this. I'm definitely going to start looking around, thinking about that stuff. I mean, and I love that it comes down to a big part of it being, don't get caught up with just what you hear in the news, and, don't get just caught up with the market trends. It's keeping in mind, it's where would you want to live? Where are you going to enjoy living? Where would you want to live that you would have things of interest, activities, and otherwise around? I think that's great advice.
Yeah, the more that's a factor, the less you probably care about whether your home is appreciating or what the cost of your home is, right? Like, I think that's something that people who don't really care for where they live, they probably think about that more than people who just enjoy the place that they're in, right?
Yeah.
People that are thinking about the lifestyle they get to live, they probably care very little about whether their home is appreciating or not because they would never think of moving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
All right, man. I think that wraps it up for episode 2.
Awesome.
Securities offered through LPL Financial member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advice offered through Foundation Wealth Partners, a DBA of Advisor Resource Council, a registered investment advisor. Foundation Wealth Partners and Advisor Resource Council are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.